Welcome to the Recover You podcast. I'm Kylene.
And I'm Patrick.
We are a couple in recovery
from sex addiction
and betrayal trauma. Together, we share our story to encourage you on your journey. It's here that we talk about sex addiction, betrayal trauma, mental, emotional, and physical health, faith, and anything and everything needed to recover you to your most authentic self that God created you to be. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Recover You. Today, we have a guest. It's not Patrick, but it is Tyler Patrick. So I almost could say hello, Patrick, as normal, but not quite. Tyler Patrick is a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 20 years. He has helped individuals and couples move through infidelity, broken trust, and addiction towards something real on the other side. He and his brother co-host the Therapy Brothers podcast, where they are direct and honest about what actually works. So welcome, Tyler. I'm so excited to have you today and to talk about addiction recovery and your perspective on that and what works and all sorts of things.
It's awesome. Awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
So maybe we can just start a little bit with how did you choose to get into this line of work, specifically helping addicts and betrayed partners? And it's a niche zone for sure.
Yeah, you bet. So probably similar to some of your story. You know, there's some personal history there. I have like a professional path where I felt like I wanted to work with couples and especially families, and kind of felt directed even spiritually to be a marriage and family therapist. But I never put the pieces together that part of that was going to lead to my own recovery story. And about 5 or 6 years into my own marriage is when everything kind of really broke open and fell apart. And then everything that I'd been learning in marriage and family therapy school, and I was working for the drug courts of southeastern Idaho at the time, doing addictions work, it all kind of came together. And then my own personal journey from that point forward, because that was about probably 18 or 19 years ago, really just kind of cemented in that this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is a life passion. I want to help couples heal. I have an extra passion in working with men and helping men not play small and step into the roles that they're designed for. And yeah, it's nice to be in a position where you get to come to work every day with something you have real passion for.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited to have you on and to point people towards another amazing resource that is available, especially like you were mentioning with like the addiction recovery and working with men. And so we're really happy to kind of highlight some of that today. So thinking about sex addiction and pornography addiction, what is like sort of your overarching view and process? Like how do people recover from this? What do they need? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's, you know, I was classically trained from the old traditional recovery model in drug court for a while, which was really heavily focused on helping to stop the behavior that was causing the problems, the drug use, or in other cases, it might be the pornography use or whatever. And over time, what I started to realize is that you could give somebody 100 different tools and teach them how to stay sober, but their lives didn't actually improve. They didn't actually get better in terms of the quality of their life and their happiness levels. And what we've started to look at is that real recovery is actually a continuous process of self-acceptance and self-discovery. We call it a wholehearted life. So the behavior is actually the fruit of a plant that has much deeper roots. And so we use something called the trauma tree, which talks about the fruits being the behavior of acting out, and then the leaves and branches being the ways that we protect that behavior, our masks, the way we show up in our lives, the way we perform for people. And then the trunk is the core beliefs that actually drive all of that. And then the roots are the life experiences that generated the core beliefs. And so we help people work on all aspects of the tree in an effort to try to see themselves and accept themselves more fully.
I love that approach so much. And it's so, in some ways counterintuitive, isn't it? That that it's self-acceptance that helps you out of the thing that you dislike about yourself.
Isn't it interesting? Because most of us as human beings, we are actually kind of geared the other way, where if we mess up, we're supposed to punish ourselves and be critical of ourselves to motivate ourselves. And then we live in a world where nobody ever gets better. And And we have this idea of the need for justice, which I think is important, but we turn justice into shame. And then shame becomes this short-term motivator that never produces good fruit. And when we go on a different journey, you know, I don't know, are you familiar with the Duke study on the donuts? Have you ever heard of the donut study?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, so this was so fascinating to me, where Duke did this study with co-ed women, and they brought them into the lab, and they had them in the first room eat a big donut and drink a big glass of water. And they were purposely trying to get them to feel sort of disgusted with themselves. And then they'd walk them down the hallway to a new room, and in the other room, there'd be a table full of a whole bunch of different kinds of chocolate, and they'd ask them to do a taste test on and rate these chocolates. And they weren't really rating the chocolates. They were rating how much these women would eat in order to call it a taste test. And on the way down the hallway, half of the women got a message of self-forgiveness from the lab assistant. They'd say, hey, you're probably feeling disgusted. You're probably feeling a little full and bloated. Don't worry about it. Everybody indulges once in a while. You're going to be okay. And then the other people were just left in their own minds. And the difference between the two groups was that the women who got the message of self-forgiveness, they ate about 29 grams of chocolate, which is significant. And the women who got no message at all ended up eating over 70 grams of chocolate. And that's where they coined a term called the "what the hell" effect. That's the scientific term, right?
That's the science term. I love it.
It's like, and that's where we let ourselves down, and then we're like, oh well, what the hell? I've already messed up. Like
living into that negative belief and self-sabotage almost.
We keep letting ourselves down, when in reality, self-forgiveness would have been the pathway to stopping the bleeding and moving ourselves in a new direction.
Yeah, it's almost like finding that part of yourself that is worthy for the recovery, that is worthy of moving through the process, and focusing on that.
That's exactly right, and it's hard to uncover that sometimes, especially when we've lived a life where the currency that we've been living from has always been this shame-based place where we're never going to measure up, we're never going to be enough. We better hurry and perform, even though we don't feel like it's authentic. And so learning to peel those layers back and come to a place of saying, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, I'm a work in progress, and I can grow. I can grow until I die. Like, that's a beautiful way of living your life. That's what I think real recovery is.
Yeah, I like that perspective. I can grow until I die. It's every day we can decide who we want to be, and we can keep building on that. You sort of, as you were introducing it, you mentioned being trained in sort of the old model, and forgive me if I word this incorrectly, but the old model is kind of focused on sobriety only, essentially, right? And a lot of what we teach here in Recover You, and I think you share this view as well, there's so much beyond sobriety that actually helps you get into deep recovery and healing. So can you maybe talk about how you view the differences, and if someone's only focused on stopping the behavior and only focused on sobriety, can that keep them stuck? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's actually... Like I look at how I used to do it for myself, trying that way. And I look at my clients who place the primary focus. And I'm not saying sobriety is not important. It's really important. But when that is the primary focus, it robs the actual guts out of what real living is. And so imagine somebody's been using this thing to try to figure out how to cope with life. And that's how they cope. And now you take their medicine away, but you don't actually treat the sickness. That's hell. I think people are living in actual hell. So everything that we focus on now is geared towards principles. And so in the tools that we teach, even the sobriety tools, we teach a skill called the lines of defense, where they map out their patterns, and then they find the places where they can change themselves with some new commitments. That's going to help get them sober. But what it's really getting them into is self-awareness, self-honesty, humility, connection, accountability. Those are principles that lead to a happy, healthy life. And you want to be in a relationship with somebody who's living principled life, not just white knuckling from some bad behavior, because you're not going to get all of them until they start living that way.
Yeah, that's so true. What do you see are some of the maybe I would say stuck points or difficulty points that people might hit as they're navigating that process? Like, are there some of the principles that are more difficult, like generally speaking, that people struggle with, or what have you noticed might kind of be a wall for people sometimes as they're moving through it?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question. You probably run into some of these same things. A couple of the principles that we really focus on a lot is integrity. And what we mean by integrity is the ability to hold your shape under pressure. And so many of the people that I work with, they are so focused on trying to heal the damage they've caused in their relationship that they think pleasing their partner is the way to rebuild trust, when in reality, holding their shape and their authenticity is actually the pathway to rebuilding trust. And so they have a hard time wrapping their heads around that I might have to still be strong and have some boundaries, even if I'm empathetic to my partner's pain. That's more important right now for me and the relationship than it is for me to hurry and placate my partner because I'm so afraid that they're going to leave me or that they don't want to be with me anymore. So that's one that we stumble over a lot. And then the other one, and this is the hard one, is the pathway to a wholehearted life is the learning to embrace that life is vulnerable. And we set up a lot of different challenges for the people we work with to practice vulnerability in safe kind of places where they can have a new emotional experience where that vulnerability gets met with someone who can hold it and respect it and revere it rather than punish it, because so many of us were punished when we were vulnerable early on.
Man, that's a big one. I feel like is the vulnerability aspect. This idea that I really can't do it by myself. I really don't have all the answers, and I have to share something maybe that feels really, really scary with another human. When you see people move through that, how do you feel it? How do you see it work in them and transform them moving forward after they take that step and practice it and actually receive that safety and that feeling of being seen by someone else?
I just had this happen in one of my women's groups last week, and then she came back this week and reported on it. But one of the assignments that we do is we have them fill out something called their timeline, and it's a line of significant events in their lives, both positive and negative, and then they come and they share that with their group. And every time this woman, she came in and she said she was like shaking. She was like physically shaking. She's like, I don't think I can do this, you guys. Like, and I'm like, what are your worries? What are your fears? She's like, you guys going to hear my story and you're never going to want me to come back, and I'm going to be rejected, and I'm going to be, and we kind of walked her through, helped her regulate her emotions. And then she did it and she shared it. And at the end of it, she was back to going like, guys, I probably won't be back next week. Right? Like, I'm so scared. And as soon as she finished in that room full of like 10 other women, there were like 3 other ladies that stood up and walked over to her and put their arms around her, were embracing her. 2 of them were crying. One of them was saying, oh my gosh, your story parallels mine so much. Like 3 other ladies are saying, I know you better now. Like, I want to know more of your story. Give me more. I want to hold it. I want to serve you. I want to help you. And she walked out of there, and she had what we call the vulnerability hangover, where she was still going, oh my gosh, like what did I just do? But she came
My nervous system got so activated. Yeah.
I was like so over the top, but she had an emotionally corrective experience where the thing that she was most afraid of, she got the opposite response. And what that's going to do for her now is it plants in her brain, oh, maybe I'm actually lovable no matter what. Oh, maybe I can actually learn to trust people again. Oh, wow. Maybe I could actually learn to actually see my secrets as a story, and my story actually matters. And it's actually really beautiful. And when she has those little things start to fracture the old way of being and then plant new seeds, eventually you get people stepping into really authentic, beautiful lives.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think that is so common for both sides of the aisle, right? Like, I think for the addict, there's a lot of resistance to sharing their story, telling friends, telling family. For the betrayed partner, they often will take on this shame that how did I not know that this was going on in my life, or that my partner had this secret life, or whatever it might be. And
I remember when I went to my first, group and had to say, "Oh, hi, my name's Kylene and my husband's a sex addict," and it was horrible. But then you keep saying it and you keep saying it and you keep saying it, and then there's such a freedom and such a release to that. I think probably with the addiction side, there's a sense of saying it out loud, almost pulling you into reality a little bit as well about kind of what has happened, but then also being accepted by others who've gone through the process and are further along in the process, showing you, hey, you just took like one of the first steps. I know in 12-step programs and things like that, often one of the primary steps is that you start telling other people that somebody knows your story, and that you're beginning to take ownership of that part as well.
100%. Could I share a personal story with that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I was probably like three or 4 years into my own recovery process. My wife and I were finally starting to have things level out. And one day she came to me and she said, "Hey, Tyler, in your practice, do you ever tell people your story?" And I'm like, of course not. No, like I never tell my story. So she's like, "Well, why wouldn't you?" And I'm like, "Well, because I probably won't have a practice, And she said, "Tyler, I'm trying to say this lovingly, but you're not the most brilliant guy in the world. So that can't be the thing you build your practice on. But what you are is you actually a really genuine person. Mm-hmm. And I think your story might be one of your biggest strengths. And I think you should share it with people." And so I thought about it for a couple of weeks. And then I don't know why I picked this, but I picked a women's group that I was doing of betrayed partners. And I was like, tonight's the night. And I kind of sat down. I'm like, "Hey, for group tonight, is it okay if we do something different? I want to share a story with you." And they're like, yeah, well, let's do that. So I told them my whole story over the course of like 45 minutes. And we got done. It was kind of like silent and awkward. And they left and I got in the car and I was shaking and crying. And I called my wife and I was like, "I think I just ruined our whole career. Like, I think it's over." And I went home and she kind of was like, "Hey, Tyler, I think it's probably not as bad as you think it is." I came back the next week and there were like 12 women in the group, and 2 of the ladies were actually furious with me. They were really mad. Like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that I've been coming to a group with a betrayer." And, the other 10 ladies were like, "Best group I've ever had. I trust you more now. I want to work with you more now. I want to bring my husband in to see you." And I was like, "What? Yeah. Like, what is going on here?" And the power started to leave of that shame. And the more you tell your story to the right places, which I don't know if that was the right place, but the less power it has. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's a big part of it. And then I think you said something else that's really important. Hearing your own voice take ownership for your body of work and put you in reality is really important. Even though it's really painful, it's really hard. Yeah. But once you're in reality, you can make new choices that you otherwise won't make when you're in denial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that story. Gosh, I think it's so, even if somebody listening wasn't an addict or wasn't a betrayed partner, I think everybody at some point has something that they're sort of afraid to tell. But I've really, through this whole process, really just come to the conclusion that secrets just absolutely destroy you. They will kill you from the inside. And we've got to find safe, healthy ways to connect with other people in order to live lives of authenticity. I think that's something you talk about as well, as the importance of authenticity through recovery. And that's a little bit kind of a theme through everything you were just saying too, right? Is like stepping into that. So what role do you think that plays as someone navigates the recovery process?
Authenticity?
Yeah.
You could almost, instead of calling it recovery, you could call it the pathway to authenticity.
I love that. Let's rename it from now on. We're teaching the pathway to authenticity. I love it.
Yeah. I just think, like, why not live your best life and accept the truth of all of you? Like, to people listening right now, every single person listening has a secret. And if you're listening right now and I were to ask you, where do you feel the secret in your body? You're going to feel it differently, but I guarantee you're thinking about it right now and your whole body's closing in on you. And you don't have to live that way. Like you don't have to live that way anymore. There's a life on the other side of that if you can walk through the fear. And on the other side of the fear, I mean, you're kind of living it right now. You're a perfect example of this, Kylene. Like, I imagine your life has been through pure hell. And here you are offering goodness to the world as a result of the things that probably could have stayed secrets till you die. Right? And look at the light that you're bringing to the world as a result of confronting that fear. Every single person has their own story like that right now. And they're in the chapter of darkness and they get a chance to choose courage or they get a chance to choose paralysis. That's the way it works.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that Patrick and I just have felt so deeply through our journey is the freedom that comes from the movement of moving through it and the sharing it out loud, doing the scary thing, how much lighter life feels, how much more freedom you experience in life. Like, I mean, we always say nobody has to be as public as we are, right? We have a podcast, we take it. but literally, I kind of love that we did that because there's almost nobody in my life, really. Most people know what we've been through. And so I can kind of, you go to church or you go here, or you go there, right? And you're not afraid. And if somebody doesn't know, it's lost its sting in terms of people, quote unquote, finding out. So there's not this, big thing kind of hanging in the back of my mind when I'm having a conversation with someone anymore of what if they find this, and because that can just feel so heavy over time, so heavy.
Oh, carrying all of that burden. Sometimes I get a client who's been in the public eye. They're all over the news or whatever. They can't really hide anymore. They come in, they think their life is over. And every single one of those clients that I've had where they couldn't keep the secret anymore because it was so public, they end up doing really well.
I was just going to say, what's the role that plays in terms of actually helping someone stay in recovery or even move beyond sobriety? I would imagine that it's a benefit.
Right, because it builds in, I love the way you just described that. Think of all of the work, emotional effort, heaviness, burden that you have to carry to keep your image management. When somebody comes and strips that away from you and you don't have to put all that resource into that, you can just go like, okay, well, I guess I start here and my life might end tomorrow, but I guess I take the first step and people can judge me all they want, but all I can do is move forward. Now, all of a sudden, they're just living a life of accountability and authenticity by the nature of how it all came out.
Right.
I'm not advocating that everybody go and get like that pulled off either, because
newspaper article.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't need that. But those people who have it go that way, it seems like there's a pretty high prevalence of them being really successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think stepping into the light. I think when you keep things in the dark, you're going to keep secrecy, you're going to keep shame, you're going to keep that heaviness. Stepping into light is one of the most powerful things you can do that'll move you towards healing. I think earlier you were mentioning a little bit about, that having that grace turned towards yourself and that self-acceptance. Humans, we often tend to feel shame or try to use shame to motivate us towards something, or there's that negative motivation or that internal coercion or pressure where we will lean on our negative self-beliefs. How can that keep people stuck? Why is holding on to the goodness and moving towards that more powerful, do you think?
I think it's, I look at two of the greatest motivators that we all have in our lives, and one of the greatest motivators we have is fear, right? That motivates us. If we're on a trail and we run into a cougar or a bear, we're going to be pretty motivated. Shame is just the fear of disconnection. And so it feels like
say that again.
Shame is the fear of disconnection. So something about me is so wrong that if people saw it, they wouldn't want to be with me or they'd judge me. And so that's maybe the biggest human fear in the world, because we're wired for connection and attachment, right? And the other motivating power in this world that is more sustainable and actually way more powerful is love. And, you think about people in your life. I remember I'd have coaches in high school. I had one coach who was fear-based, and he got me to work really hard, or else I'd sit on the bench. right? I had another coach who, after a game, we got beat really bad. He came in and he sat down next to me and he said, "Hey, Tyler, I know the game didn't turn out for us this way, but I see your heart, and I would go into battle with you every single day of the year." How did I respond to that coach? I would die for that coach, right? And what if we started to learn that we could use all of the different motivators, but the sustainable one and the more powerful one is love, right? So if I'm living in shame all the time, I'm actually spoon feeding the very poison that leads to the acting out in the first place. And I need to learn to spoon feed myself something different, even though it feels kind of backwards.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many parts of the recovery journey that feel counterintuitive, actually. I mean, just the idea of us moving towards the discomfort instead of away from it. And we're kind of wired to move towards the comfort and familiarity. And everything that requires growth means that we're going to be uncomfortable with it. It's like, no one said this was like the easiest process, but transformational, certainly, when you choose that route. Yeah. And wouldn't you want, if you had a choice, if you were standing in front of those two options, wouldn't you want to choose the love option? The part that leads to feeling so much more aligned internally. You don't have all this conflict because you are living authentically, you are living in integrity. And now you can really, truly love yourself in a healthy, not narcissistic, but, feel proud of yourself,
Right. Yeah. I'd say probably more like a growth-minded kind of a way rather than that fixed-minded way, right? Where I've still got things to work on. I'm still a constant work in progress, but I like who I am. I know that I can learn, and I'm gonna accomplish a lot more that way in my life than I am if I just have to sit and beat myself up and stay terrible the rest of my life.
Yeah. Not a good way to live, I think. Sometimes when men will get discovered, let's say, they might find a group, and sometimes, or they might even find a therapist, and sometimes they'll come in and say, "I'm here because my partner found out." And maybe that's the first reason that they got connected to something. But if the motivation that they have is primarily related to managing their relationship, what concerns or problems or what do you see kind of associated with that if that's the only motivation is to save a relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always ask my men. I had a guy in group last night this way where he was like, "Guys, I got a question. My wife wants me to tell her all of this and this and this and this. Should I tell her everything or should I not?" And I'm like, "Dude, like, where's your value system lie?" Right? And he's like, "Well, but if I don't tell her, then she'll leave me. But if I do tell her, then she'll hate me." And like, okay, he's so focused on trying to cling to her, and he's also focused on trying to repair the damage that he's done, that he's actually losing his ability to love her and build trust. So when I come into treatment, I want to be, part of me wants to be a good husband. And so of course I don't want to lose my wife, but if I'm doing my recovery work out of the fear of losing her, I always ask them, like, what is your overall goal? Well, I want to feel connected to her and I want her to trust me. Okay, how's she going to trust you if in the back of her mind, she knows you're only here to not lose her? How's she going to trust you if in the back of her mind, she sees you lose your shape all the time because every time she has some kind of a problem with you, you fold like a cheap tent, right? Like, how are you actually helping in the process of getting what you said you just wanted? And so what typically, and I you could probably speak to this even better than I could, but most of the partners that have been betrayed that I work with, what they're looking for is safety, security, respect, trust. And if the ground is constantly shaking underneath their feet while you scramble around to not lose her, she's not feeling any of those things. And in the long term, she might feel good to give her a sense of control for a while, but in the long term, she will resent you and she'll see you as weak and small.
Right.
And so, eventually you got to come to this place where you look yourself in the mirror and the only person that matters is the guy in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, and your higher power. And when that happens, that gives you the best chance of saving a relationship.
Yeah, because gosh, it's another one of those counterintuitive things, right? Because you might lose your partner, but if you aren't completely honest with them and you don't create that safety and stability, they can tell. They're always if you're not being proactive because you want to do this and you want to change your life and you want to become a different person. Most of the time your partner can tell that you're dragging your feet, you're not being proactive about it, that you're kind of being resistant or only checking the box. Like I'll hear people say they're just checking the box, or I'm only getting a vibe that it's surface level, it's not going really deep, they're not getting really vulnerable, and it frustrates people. And so it's like that counterintuitive thing of, well, if you don't, you might lose them, but if you do, you might lose them, but which one is going to help you become a better person? Because that will most likely be seen by your partner as well.
Yeah, and I think it's as you said, it's the feeling that comes with it too. I have this image in my own mind of my own recovery where for the first little bit it was don't lose your wife. And then eventually I started to have some different experiences and go, wait a second, like my wife is one part of who I was designed to be. And I need to put my focus on my God-given design and keep the peripheral part of that with my marriage. And when I started to focus on it that way, it was the craziest thing. My wife started to like soften. And she was kind of like, one day she came to me, she's like, hey, Tyler, I see you being like really trying hard and I'm really grateful for the work you're putting in. And I'm like, oh, I try not to even bother with whether or not you see that. And she felt it. It's like a feeling of, this is a person who's genuinely doing their work rather than that checklist you're talking about. We call that compliance. It's like, it's like just a waste of energy.
It's what's coming to my mind kind of as we're talking about this is the idea of like codependency versus interdependency. And again, that idea of like clinging to something, it's going to feel so maybe backwards to say, well, I actually have to let it go, to see if it'll stick around. But, the betrayed partners kind of have to do that in a sense as well. So a lot of times betrayed partners will, we really, really, really desire a sense of control after we feel like safety and control has been taken away. But there's a period of time after, everybody's connected to everything and everybody, your addict partner is going to therapy and group, that you essentially have to kind of just breathe and watch and see what happens and release control and able to see in order to see what's going to happen. And, will safety occur and will the relationship work out? Where is that authenticity and that integrity piece? And can you maybe speak into a little bit that idea of and maybe this is repeating a little bit about what you just said, but the idea of depending that your identity and your safety being so dependent on another person. But if you want that relationship to work, it actually requires the independence and healing first.
100%. And I think this is so hard when let's say you're a betrayed partner right now listening, you didn't do anything necessarily wrong to deserve this. You got thrown into a situation that leaves you with a ton of work on your plate that isn't really fair or yours or right. And to hear what you just said, Kylene, that's a hard pill to swallow, to say, oh, I got to figure out how to like learn to trust myself enough to let go of that control. And I see so many partners that I work with, they know that they deserve to be treated better than they've been being treated in their relationship. And yet when they're being taught how to try to surrender your partner and say, hey, your partner, the only way you're ever going to really trust your partner is if you allow them to prove that they're trustworthy. Like if you beat them into trust, you're never going to trust. Right. And but then for them to be on the sidelines, a lot of times partners don't want to confront the fact that they're also fearful of losing. And they cling to an idea of what could be with the relationship instead of allowing it to be surrendered and let it grow into what it's going to be. Because there's no guarantee in that, right? So many partners, when they do that, sometimes their biggest fear comes true that their partner didn't actually want to do the work, and then that leaves them with some hard decisions.
Right.
And some people would rather not make those decisions, and so they cling to the control instead.
Yeah. What do you think really actually builds the trust in the relationships. If somebody wants to see if reconciliation is possible, what are some of the foundational things that make that happen?
Yeah, again, this is kind of back to principled stuff that we go through. We talk about something called the trust equation, and this is for both partners. And it's shame resiliency first. So both partners need to be, and this is maybe what you were calling interdependence. I need to learn that I can trust myself to manage my own shame. And if I work on those things, that starts to put trust in the bucket because my partner sees me working on those things. And it allows me to then step into the rest of the equation. So shame resiliency plus honesty, empathy, and consistent effort over time is the basis of the first level of trust. And then the end of the equation is plus grace and forgiveness. And sometimes the grace and forgiveness comes a lot later on.
Right. You got to see the other ones first. Yeah, the consistency over time. Exactly.
Yeah. But those things build trust over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that piece is so crucial, is the consistency plus time. Consistency. We have to see the behavior, because sometimes people, well, how do I know if someone has lied to me for so long? If it is real, you're going to see consistent change for a long period of time. And you're going to see this progression and pattern changes, and you're going to see more vulnerability. You're going to see they change the way they think about things. And when that's real and it's deep, it just grows on itself over time. And then to your point, you feel it. I think that's one of those, my nervous system feels your nervous system.
Yeah.
And I can really, we're in the same house and I'm 2 feet away from you. And I there's a sense there. There's just a knowing that you will get over time when it's that deep, authentic healing.
I love that, what you said. And I would just say to people listening, sometimes if you're climbing out of being the one who's done the betraying, you think consistency over time means like 2 or 3 months. And I'd say like, give yourself more time than that.
Yeah. Like years.
Yeah.
Like the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
Like the never ending growth pattern, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit? I know you have the podcast. I know you have different programs. I know you work with individuals. Can you how can people find you? What services do you offer, and resources and things like that are available for people to find and connect with?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we work with couples and individuals on their own healing processes. We have a platform called risingsun.org, which is where a lot of the men are building a community in their own recovery. And then the best place for people to find us is therapybrothers.org/recoveryou. And it's going to tie them to you. It's going to say, hey, it's seen on your podcast and here's your show. And then it ties them to a couple of specific episodes for your target audience. And
great.
They can.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure to put both of those in the show notes as well. Before we close out, is there anything that you would want to say to a recovering addict or a betrayed partner or anyone listening today that you don't feel like you had a chance to share?
Yeah, you bet. I know, because I've been there before, that if you're listening to a show like this, your life didn't go the way that you anticipated it to go. And you might be feeling a little bit helpless or a little bit powerless or a little bit devastated right now. I have 4 daughters, and I feel like one of my challenges in life is to help create the kind of men that my daughters can marry. And I will say that a man in recovery is the perfect guy to be married to, because he knows his darkness. He's working on himself. He learns empathy. He learns self-awareness. He learns how to continue to put effort into the right places. And who wouldn't want to be with that person? So it's possible. There's hope here. If you do the work, it's gut-wrenching, but it's worth doing, and there's life on the other side.
That's a beautiful, beautiful way to say that. Thank you for sharing that. Well, we will just close out by saying thank you so much, Tyler, for being here today. I hope people will connect to your resources. I think the work you are doing is absolutely phenomenal, and we're so grateful to have more and more and more practitioners coming out and sharing the truth that recovery is possible and that you can live a happy, healthy life after betrayal and addiction. Every day is a new opportunity to choose health and freedom. Make that choice today, and we will see you next week.
Woohoo! If you're listening to this, it means you've made it through an entire episode. Part of recovery is spending time engaging in healing and self-growth activities. We are thankful that you chose our podcast to be one of those activities today. Make sure you reward yourself for that accomplishment. If you've enjoyed this episode or this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Please take just a few moments to leave a rating and review, letting us know your experience with Recover You. We not only love hearing how these episodes are helpful, but ratings and reviews help others just like you who are searching for recovery information and support find the podcast too. We can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.